Number 10, one of my favorite players in the entire draft, Mo Camara.
Whoa.
Did I just blow your mind?
Whoa. Brother, I don't have Mo Camara in my top 20.
Wow, okay.
You're trying to be on the right side of history. I respect you for it, dude.
This is my bet.
Sure.
I always have one bet in the edge class.
Sure. 7-2 offsuits, got no chance in hell, but you're going all in, baby.
Don't
you're
care.
Trying to, let's see 7-7-2 on the river for Mo Camara. Let's see it. Hall of Famer.
Oh, if it hits, though, we're getting the boat again. The Casino Riverboat.
The boat Camara. That's what it's going to be called.
The Mo Boat.
The Mo Boat.
I'm all in.
Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers, joining you guys on one of the final position ranking episodes of the show before the 2024 NFL Draft. We've gone through running backs, we've done interior defensive linemen, we've done tight ends, and now it's time to get back to the premium positions, baby. This is what the people want. It's provocative, gets the people going. It's edge rushers. We're expanding the list. Normally, Connor and I will summer scouting. We'll do top fives. Hey, early lists. List in January, we'll do top 10, top 20 for you guys. So we love you so much. We're expanding this bad boy all the way into the top 20, which means you're going to get, some of the 4th, 5th round grade guys as well, the specialists, run stuffers, outside linebackers, 4-3 defensive ends, specialized passers, whatever it is. We're going to get to all sorts of flavors for all sorts of teams. Connor, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. Listen, the Mets are historically bad. The Rangers are just...
God.
The Rangers are just awesome to watch. 5v5 opening line brawl. Usually you get the 3-on-3 once a year somewhere around the league, but the 5v5 was absolutely glorious. And this is really fun that we're cranking this thing up to top 20s because you nailed it. You're away from, okay, these three guys have all the traits and they could be a star, and you're really going on and on. And I think when you get to that maybe 9 and on range, you're often talking about role players or players that can grow into full-time players or scheme-specific players, or sometimes great athletes that, need seasoning and need to figure it out. It's the part of the process for me that I start to enjoy the most this time of year. When we do summer scouting, we're looking for the stars. I mean, that's what it's all about. When we've been talking about those stars for, almost 80% of a year, it's a lot more fun to find the hidden gems or the guys that can be something more than they're being projected as. So, and typically you and I save this level of rankings for things like wide receiver and stuff. So it's really cool that we're getting to it with the pass rushers this year.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to get to it. I've watched 34 edge rushers for the PFF draft guide. So you can go check that out in the PFF draft guide. And I'm also saying that up front to say, we're going to go through our top 20s, but I have some thoughts on some of these other guys. Yeah. Connor's watched more than 20 as well.
Yep.
So if there's, certain diamond in the rough, somebody who's on day 3 who we didn't mention that you love, fire them off in the comments. We'll have a good back and forth, and we'll tell you what we think about these guys if we got some notes on them. So, dude, let's just start it off like this. We're going to go top 20, so obviously we want to get to it right away. Let's go 20 to 16, then we'll do 15 to 11. We've talked a lot about the top 10 guys, specifically the top 5. So it might be a little bit shorter then. We'll get to our, kind of final rankings of how we have the top of this class. So we'll talk about maybe the order instead of as much the prospects, because you guys probably know a lot about, shocker, Dallas Turner, Latu, Jared Verse. Tell me, we're not going to start from ground zero with those guys, but we'll tell you what order we have them in and why. But I will let you start. Give me your 20 through 16. And I'll pick a couple and we'll kind of have a conversation started off right there.
I almost had a panic moment. I realized I forgot to transfer a guy in the middle of it from where I work on all my scouting reports and stack them to like the rankings sheet I read for this show. So we're off to just a glorious start.
Yeah, we always are.
As always, we are firing on all cylinders. So hopefully I don't miss anybody here. Okay, so 20 to 16. And you're right. There are guys outside of the top 20 that I'm looking at. I'm like, man, we do have to get to them. So number 20, Jalen Harrell from Michigan.
Okay.
I think he was on a stock up show very, very early in the season. 19, Cedric Johnson from Ole Miss, Senior Bowl guy.
Yep.
18, Xavier Thomas from Clemson, who has played he has played, I think, 61 games for Clemson, a
Yes.
6-year player.
Yes.
Okay, so that was 18. 17, Javon Solomon, another guy. I know he got a little banged up right at the beginning of the Senior Bowl, very explosive on tape. I know we'll get into having a combo about him.
Mm-hmm.
And then 16, Brennan Jackson, a guy that from Washington State, a guy that plays as hard as, maybe anybody in this draft. When you watch him, he's just kind of that pinball player bouncing around offensive lineman. And I know I forgot to say this, Javon Solomon from Troy,
Yes.
a smaller school player, but a very productive player. So, yeah, I mean, we kicked off the pod talking about just flavors. There are all different kinds of players from that 20 to 16 range.
Okay, so real quick, list them off once again for me.
Yeah, so 20 was Jalen Harrell from Michigan.
Yep.
19 was Cedric Johnson from Ole Miss. 18 is Xavier Thomas from Clemson. 17 is Javon Solomon from Troy. And then 16 was Brennan Jackson from Washington State.
Okay, 2 of those players are not in my top 20. So I don't have Jalen Harrell in my top 20, and I don't have Cedric Johnson in my top 20. Now, Jalen Harrell is tied for like the same kind of round grade that I have for a couple of the guys who are the back end of my top 20. He was just sort of, either tied very close when it comes to film grade, and so he was just left a little bit outside of it. But I'll actually leave it to you, dealer's choice. Where do you want to start with one of those guys? Is there somebody in particular that you really enjoyed watching that you really want to dig into? I can tell you Xavier Thomas and Javon Solomon, we're going to get to in my rankings, but I have them even higher. So we'll definitely have those conversations. But where do you want to start?
So we'll hold off on them because I really like them too. And I was a little frustrated having to leave them, outside of the top 15. But there's just players I really like in this draft. It's a weird edge class where the guys at the top are in the tier, and then it's just this giant pool of players. It's really crazy, like a giant pool of players. It's not like wide receiver. I felt like I kept having tier and tier and tier and tier. With edge, it was like tier 1, tier 2. Oh, tier 3 has 12 guys in it.
Right.
And it's a little hyperbole, but it did feel that way at times. I guess I could just break down Cedric Johnson and Harrell because you're not going to have them in your top 20. Harrell is somebody to me that is a situational pass rusher, pretty explosive player. I think he can get off the ball and really master that kind of outside rush and just play really fast. I think he's somebody to me that, he's not going to be an every down player. It didn't even feel like Michigan wanted to use him in that way. He did get up to 250 pounds for this process. I don't know if he actually was playing at 250. Didn't always look at like that.
Yeah.
You talk about the explosiveness, that 37-inch vertical. I mean, once again, the ability to get off the ball and rush wide and use speed, but a true situational player. Like I would only want to use Harrell on 3rd and longs on the edge. I'd want him to be a stand-up rusher. And then when you get to Cedric Johnson, it kind of felt like the exact opposite with him. He's got the right build for the position. He is a very good straight line tester. When you look at his measurables, like he's 6'3", 260. He's built with 33.5-inch arms, which is kind of the threshold that you want. The 4'6", 340, 86th percentile. The 38-inch vertical, 81st percentile. He didn't do the agilities, but that's how he plays. He is a straight line. I want to use my hands. I want to create power. I want to set a hard edge. I want to be able to stop the run. I want to hold the point of attack. There's no creativity in his pass rush plan. I just don't think he's that kind of guy. I didn't see a lot of moves. I didn't see a lot. He's not flexible. Like he's not loose. There was a couple of times where he's got that explosive lower body power off the ball that he can beat the tackle wide. But when he has to start flipping his hips and turning, or the quarterback just is a little twitchy and jumps out of the way, it's like, he's like, oh man, I missed him. Like, how some guys kind of run the hoop and they just make your life hell. And it's like you're running away from like a cheetah. Like with him, it's kind of like you're almost running away from like a bear. Like it's like the clumsy, like, oh man, like, but he plays with really good power. And I think he's a true NFL player for a guy that's ranked all the way on the back end here at 19. It feels like you can put him on the field against the run pretty early. He has a typical edge, hand in the dirt kind of build. So there's no flash in Cedric Johnson's game, but when you look at NFL explosiveness and straight line power, I thought he had enough of that.
Yeah, I have Harrell graded above Cedric Johnson. I got Cedric Johnson ranked as my 26th edge rusher here. I have him as a 5th round grade. And we basically see him the same.
I was going to say, I would have him in the same area. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of the same thing as like, you love the build, love the explosiveness. I turned on his tape, and again, like we're 3-4 reps into this thing, and I'm like, oh, we might have something here.
It's like a tank.
And it never manifested itself into. He's just got too much of a I'm big and strong, and like that matters at the NFL level, but the hand usage was lacking. Really does not have a pass rush plan at all.
No.
And even on some of those reps, like you mentioned, where he gets off the ball quick, it's like, okay, what'd you do with it? Like you actually like got off the ball really, really well, but it just never turned into like backfield production or staying off blocks or things like that. So he's a good athlete, but I worry if that pass rush plan for him does not get better, even at his size, does he become like a replaceable type of player?
Right.
So that's why I'm a little bit lower on him in the 5th. Harold's kind of the same way. Like Harold, dad played in the NFL, played Mike linebacker basically his entire career when he was in high school, immediately switched over to edge at Michigan. And yeah, you're right. He's a little bit lighter of a weight. I think it took a little bit to like become a full-time starter, if I remember correctly, just because he was used as that specialist at Michigan. And so I think that he's a really well-built athlete. I love his finesse game, especially when it comes to like the start and stop stuff. Like you can tell he played off-ball linebacker because he will like he can't if he has to adjust to the ball, like the ball carrier goes away that he's not used to, he will be the first one to put his foot in the ground and go the other direction. And offensive linemen often cannot keep up. So I like that from him. He's got super fast hands to try to stay unblocked. But you're right. The weight profile, like if you watch this guy try to hold the line of scrimmage, it does not go well. When he tries to do the speed to power, it fades very quickly. So I think he's kind of a situational guy. Again, I gave him an early day 3 grade. I gave him a 4th round grade. So yeah, that's how I see those guys.
He hit an inside spin on Roger Rosengarten in the national title game, where credit to Rosengarten, he recovered really well.
Rosengarten's a good athlete too.
And Penix got the ball out on a play that it really should have been like the execution to me was pretty flawless. It's more impressive from Rosengarten, but that inside spin, he's able to work because there's so much twitch and change of direction that the tackle tries to mirror. And then rather than like really dropping your hips and like sinking your ass ready, like for that power rush off the twitch, it's a spin where you're like, whoa, I have to step all the way inside on this. So I think that like that's got to be his bread and butter. Like he just has to play almost standing up. It's almost wide 9, get a tackle on an island and be like, okay, like isolation basketball. And there are schemes that use a guy like that in NASCAR packages. So that's why I took the swing on Harrell in the top 20, because I think there's real pass rush things there with him. But I completely agree with you that like he's got to master that to be on an NFL field for sure.
And here's how I explained him in my little bottom line synopsis. Like Harold's smaller size and lack of power limits his ceiling as a pass rusher, but he does have the speed game to be an outside linebacker rush specialist for a 3-4 defense. And then I say he may enter the NFL as an edge rusher, but he might end up finding a better role as an off-ball linebacker. Like I still think there's a future where, this guy loses a little bit of weight. You put him at 235 or something, and you just like let him be an off-ball linebacker. I think that he could have some success there as well. All right. Anybody else you want to mention in that group?
Okay, so we're going to do Xavier Thomas and Solomon. Do you have Brennan Jackson in your top 20?
Yes, I do.
All right, so I want to hear yours, and then we can kind of react to the crossover guys.
Okay, yeah, I actually have all 3 of those guys a little bit higher. So number 20, funny enough, we were texting about this guy a little bit earlier. I have Miles Cole from Texas Tech. Just a giant individual, very big athlete, sort of a little bit along the same lines as Cedric Johnson, but I liked what I saw from Miles Cole a little bit better. So I got Miles Cole as my 20th edge rusher. I got Nelson Caesar from Houston at number 19. I like his pass rush profile. I just don't know if he has the size to be able to do it at the NFL level. But
he was 22 for me.
I just like, he's smart, man. He's smart. Yeah. He's got a good pass rush plan. And I actually love how he attacks offensive tackles with a long arm technique. He's very good at it. He goes straight into the chest. You could tell he knocks them onto their heels, but I'm like, man, you're not going to be able to do this at the NFL level. I love what I'm seeing in college. I don't think he's big enough to be able to do it at the NFL level, but I am a sucker for Nelson Caesar's game. So he was close to you. So, I mean, I guess you feel the same way.
I do. It broke my heart how bad the testing was in the explosive and agilities, because I'm with you that I think he needs to kind of convert how he wins. Not all the time, but because you look, and for context, I mean, this is a dude that like the 7.33 cone, 35th percentile, 20-yard shuttle, 4.57, 19th percentile, 31-inch vertical, 23rd percentile. Like he's a significantly below average athlete for a guy that's already borderline undersized. Massive hands, and he knows how to use them. You brought that up with Caesar. I mean, he's somebody that, like, that long arm really, really working. I thought he had a good first step. Like, and it's not even
the testing was weird to me.
Me too.
He's a better athlete than that.
I didn't see the testing and just write him off. Like, he's still in my top 25 edge players. He's still a firm day 3 grade. He's probably hovering around a 5th round grade for me. Mm-hmm. But you really do have to balance pretty good tape and really bad testing. And then you watch the tape and you're like, okay, he had that. We talked about this over the summer, the fake long arm to dip move. I remember we talked about this over the summer. He did it against UTSA. I was like, this dude, like he is, I'm not going to call him a master of his craft, but he's into his craft. He's trying shit.
That's why it's tough for me,
right,
to put him any lower than, again, I gave him a 4th round grade. And basically you either see him as a mid-round prospect or you probably see him as like borderline undraftable. Yeah, there's probably not a big in between there, because either you like what you see from his pass rush IQ and his football IQ enough to say like, all right, that's gonna work enough in the league, or you go, he's not big enough, he's not fast enough, he's not strong enough. Yeah. I'm not really taking him. So
yeah, I mean, he's definitely a tricky one. He's really tricky.
So at 18, I have Javonte Jean-Baptiste.
Okay.
From Notre Dame.
Yep.
Formerly of Ohio State. 17, I have Gabriel Murphy from UCLA. And then
I'm surprised about that one.
What, you thought it'd be higher?
Yeah, I thought I don't know why I thought you really, really liked him. Not that it's crazy. He's in my next batch. So
okay. I mean, like, he is sort of fringe, like late 3rd, early 4th round for me.
Okay.
I like it. I like him, but there are some other pass rushers that I like more. 16 is where I have Brandon Dorless, but like Dorless is tough for me. I think people are going to hear him as like 16th as on the edge rush show, but I'm probably going to have him higher overall on like the PFF big board, because I genuinely am torn between like where he is, if he's an interior defensive lineman or an edge rusher. His weight and where he's going tells me that he's going to start his career as a defensive end, but I think he could be a really good interior defensive tackle. Like, I can't remember what I said on the show, but I probably would have had Brandon Dorless as like IDL 6, IDL 7. Like he'd have been in my top 8 interior defensive linemen in this class. He's the 16th edge rusher. I wish he went more the defensive interior route, because I think he'd be better at it, but it's just kind of a weird in between. It's a deeper edge rush class than it is an interior defensive line class. So when people listen to this and they hear it and they go like, whoa, you're way lower on him, but you're way higher on the big board. That's why I think he's got multiple skill sets. And I think that's why I'll end up with him a lot higher on the big board. But he was 16 for me. So that's my 20 through 16.
So, okay, we'll get into, so we could talk about Murphy, because I have him at 14.
Okay.
With Murphy, let me pull up. I wrote him up in full a while ago. I wrote compact pass rusher, quick feet, short arms, very odd projection at the next level. Like, he's played with his hand in the dirt. He's played standing up from all alignments. I mean, UCLA, they'll use them over the guards and centers at times as well. He's a guy that he wants to play with as much space as possible, because he does not want to get into that length battle. Mm-hmm. Like, in close quarters, as soon as he's locked up, it's like, I don't really have the length to get out of here. And that's a really, really big issue. I think he's very skillful, which is kind of the theme of the UCLA front 7. Just the fact that he knows how to swipe hands down. That he'll use an arm over that's very elusive. He's somebody that, to me, he doesn't have that knockback power and typical edge setting strength, where I don't think he's going to be on the field on early downs right away. Then you have to be the master of your craft as a pass rusher that has physical limitations. So Murphy was a bit of an enigma for me, because I think the tape is good, and he is a guy that wins his reps at the college level, and he does it without just being a freak show out there. Like there is technique and refinement, which doesn't like we talked about this. The guys that were around Latu, they all just it kind of spread to them where it's like, okay, I know how to use my hands. I understand how to have a pass rush plan, but definitely a guy that the length issues and the overall lack of speed to power could be a problem at the next level.
Right. I feel as though like I really liked him a lot when I was watching him during the season, but then, you see the testing, you get the measurables, you watch a little bit more of the tape, and I cooled a little bit on him. I felt like he could be, maybe a late second, early third round pick initially when I was watching him, but he just doesn't have the build to be that kind of a player. I mean, he's first percentile wingspan, 0th percentile arm length, 0.
Yeah, 0. Yep.
And when it comes to height and weight, 18th percentile height, 9th percentile weight, and that's at 247. I don't really know how much bigger this guy's going to be able to get. So obviously as an athlete compared to other edge rushers, he's really good. Like the percentiles are in the 90s and the 80s, and so I think that those scores are really good. And it's why ultimately I like him more than his twin brother, because I think Grayson uses more power than Gabriel does. And I don't really think the power game for how both of these guys are built is the more translatable one. Like instead, I look at Gabriel and I say, okay, well, if you are going to be a difference maker in the league, it's because, like what you said, your handwork is so fast, your block shedding is so fast, you're not letting these offensive tackles get into you and get into your chest. You're just keeping yourself clean the whole time. To me, that's like a pass rush specialist. I don't really know what Grayson is, because Grayson wins right now with a lot more speed to power, with bull rushes, with leverage, and he's not nearly as quick in the finesse game parts of pass rushing. I think that fades a lot more with their measurables in the NFL than the quickness does. So I like him. And again, like I could see a good contributing role for him as a preferred pass rusher. I've just cooled since I watched him in the middle of the season for those reasons.
Right. Yeah, it totally makes sense. I think our grades are very, very similar for me.
Where
as well.
do you have Javonte Jean-Baptiste from Notre Dame?
He's outside my top 20.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me about him. I was very frustrated with him in Mobile, and I hope it didn't just like sour me into when I started watching the film on him.
Sure.
The Mets broke up a no-hitter. The season's not fucking lifeless. 8th inning. They went 13 innings without a hit today. Doubleheader. That's all I'll do in the show today in terms of Mets interruptions.
Incredible. No, the people need more of it.
Sorry, Jean-Baptiste. I killed your moment. Nobody, especially the Mets, should kill your moment. But please talk to me, because I thought down in Mobile, it was just a guy that, struggled to find ways to win. And when I watched the film, I had a little bit of nervousness carryover, but this is somebody that clearly has a high upside athletic profile.
Yeah, and I think that he's just like he's a high effort player too. So he played for how many years at Ohio State? I think he played 5 years at Ohio State.
Yes, and then transferred Notre Dame, I want to say.
Yes, yeah, because he's a 6-year guy. So obviously, like it's
quite
taken
a few
him
of those
while.
today.
I know, man.
Quite a few of those.
You didn't even bring up Miles Cole.
Miles Cole will turn 25 years old during his rookie season.
Hey, he can rent a car.
He could rent a car.
Think about that.
He has 4 years of beer drinking under his belt if he pleases.
if
Doesn't look like it.
If he so chooses to partake. Okay, let me just read my scouting summary really quick for
please.
Okay. After a 5-year career at Ohio State, Jean-Baptiste transferred to Notre Dame for his 6th year of college ball, and he had his most productive year this past year. His preferred alignment is in a 3-4 outside linebacker set, especially given his weight, which he weighed in at 250. So he's almost 6'5". So he's 6'4" and 5/8, which is 71st percentile, but then 250 is just 15th percentile. Okay. He brings ideal height to the edge position at just under 6'5", but his arm length does not quite match that, and he won't be winning with length at the NFL level. His first step explosiveness, lateral explosiveness, and pursuit speed are all pretty impressive. He is a big athlete on the edge. When he gets on the hoof to run and chase, he really stands out. However, as a whole, his power profile is definitely lacking. When he gets his hands and leverage right, he can mitigate strength concerns, but he needs to add weight and density to not get pushed around nearly as much in the NFL. My final kind of thoughts on him: there are flashes of impactful speed rush elements for Jean-Baptiste. that paved the way for a pass rush specialist role as a 3-4 outside linebacker. But whether he achieves that or greater, he must get stronger to do so. Grades pretty well. He had a 55th percentile pass rush win rate that includes the last 2 years. Run defense grade was an 84.7 despite some of the strength deficiencies. Run stop percentage was 87th percentile. So I think there's room for him to be a decent outside linebacker edge prospect at the NFL level. He's just got to get stronger and more dense in order to be able to really do it and round out that pass rush profile.
I mean, listen, that's a really good explanation of the fact that him getting stronger is so much more important. That was my issue. Like when hands were under his pads, it felt like, oh man,
he's getting moved.
There's a jolt is the word I was looking for. Yeah. He's getting moved. And that's always a scary thing at the NFL when, you're not exactly a master at eluding blocks. And I didn't think he was a master at eluding blocks.
Yeah. I watched one game. I watched his highest graded game, Iowa, when he was at Ohio State. And that was a pretty nice game to watch of him. Like that's like the flashes of, okay, if all this stuff comes together, you see the handful of plays that he can give you every single game that you go, okay, definitely a dude that we got to keep in the edge rush rotation. So are we good? Do you want to talk about Miles Cole or no? We're moving on.
Quickly, I just thought he was somebody that for a 6th-year player, the lack of production and making plays on tape, incredible length. But I did not think he was strong for his size. He's on the ground a lot. He didn't have good balance. He didn't really know how to disrupt as a pass rusher or a run defender. He more was a, can I read and react run defender with my length? I don't have like a ton of, groundbreaking thoughts, but I just think a 60-year player where the green light didn't come on in that conference with all of those tools, you have to draft him because if an NFL defensive coach sees those kinds of tools, not just the athleticism, but the freakish wingspan, like, let's see what we can do that maybe they couldn't figure out. But it was a frustrating watch because it felt like a guy that should have been so much better.
I watched him. I got one game in and I was like, why are you bad?
Right. That's literally what I said after 3 games. I was like, I'm not angry watching the film.
He's got no college production, right? Like, what's his season high sacks? It's like
3.5.
And he had 6 years to do it. He grades very poorly at PFF. He's got no backfield production. And I watched this dude for one game and I was like, why aren't you good? Dude, the way that this guy can get off the ball, the way that he can stack and shed, the effort that he plays with, how much of a bitch his length is to deal with as an edge rusher. Like, let me read you what's the last kind of line that I say to him. It is often futile to say that a 6th-year player with low production and low grades still has potential, but Cole does. And I don't know how else to say it. I don't really know how to quit this player. Yeah. And so I gave him a 4th-round grade, and I understand, like, his production says nothing close to a 4th-round grade. But it's so hard for me to, when we're talking beginning of day 3, look at this guy and not draft him. I mean, hold on, I'm pulling up his mock draftable right now. 92nd percentile height, 82nd percentile weight, 98th percentile wingspan, 99th percentile arm length, and he still ran a 79th percentile 40-yard dash, a 71st percentile vertical jump, and a 73rd broad jump. All right, he didn't do the agility drills. Yeah, why do you think? Because he's massive. That's not how he's going to win. He's big, he's giant, he's explosive, and when the light comes on, right, when he gets off the ball at the snap, when his arms go up and get fully extended, and when he maintains leverage, I mean, he put offensive tackles in hell. Now, we didn't see it nearly enough, and especially when he put them in hell, he didn't know what to do next. There wasn't like a boom, push, pull, I'm ripping you to the side. There wasn't a club rip move if he was close to the outside. There wasn't this sick arm over inside move. And so like that stuff, it's like, why? How did you go 6 years in college and you don't have those moves that you can conjure at any point in time? Because I feel like he's got the explosiveness to do it. So yeah, look, low production player, but I had to get that off my chest. I watched him and I was just like, come on, man. you got to be better. Like you're gifted. This guy's
infuriating.
Truly
infuriating.
All
He
right.
is sitting at edge 23
Okay.
for me right now, but that's still a little bit more fluid outside the top 20.
Okay. So, all right, give me 15 through 11. Let's do that.
Okay, so 15. Is it Jalix Hunt?
Yeah, baby.
Nailed it.
It is.
Man, this dude, he's the one where
I got him at 12.
you want to get crazy with it. You do. You watch him and you're like, let me, I don't want to say dummy proof this, but just start from the beginning, because I can't assume everybody's true sicko status like us and they're watching Houston Christian's Jalix Hunt, a transfer from Cornell that was a defensive back, and I believe he played wide receiver in high school.
Yeah, he played wide receiver. He was all county his senior year at wide receiver. He played safety at Cornell. Now he's going to the NFL as an edge rusher.
As a 6'3" and 3/4, almost 6'4", 252-pound edge rusher.
Yeah.
That, just to put it in perspective of like what kind of freak show we're dealing with here. I mean, 80th percentile arm length, 80th percentile 10-yard split, 4.6 440, 37.5-inch vert, 95th percentile broad jump. Like, this is like that guy that can probably show up to play the pickup game and he's just doing a windmill dunk and everyone's looking around like, well, like, we should go home. Yeah.
Come on, brother. This is
freaky
it's an LA
stuff.
Fitness. Like, I'm just doing this after work.
Yeah. Like, I'm just trying to not tear both my ACLs and carry them home in like my knapsack.
I'm trying to blow off some stress from a 9 to 5, man. I'm not trying to get absolutely yammed on at 6:30 p.m.
This is my only cardio, is jogging up and down the gym, and I'll shoot a 3 from the parking lot to feel alive.
I was going to say, I'm here to shoot I'm here to be a trailing 3-point shooter. Please do not yam on me in transition.
Yes, let me try to Caitlin Clark this from half court, and then I'll go home after I airball it or just completely brick it. So Jalix Hunt is 15 for me. We'll have that conversation. I'll just rip through these. 14 was Gabe Murphy.
Yep.
13 was Austin Booker.
Mm-hmm.
12 was Marshawn Nealand.
Mm-hmm.
And 11 is Brandon Dorless, who I don't think you're crazy for where you have him. I just got to the point where I didn't even know what to do with him.
Yeah, he's just really hard to place in this class.
It's so hard to place, where I almost kicked him back to D-line again for like the 7th time.
Right.
Because he just... Dorless is weird. I guess that's an easy place to start, as I have him at 11. There are so much physical gifts, and I like that he can play up and down the line of scrimmage, and I think he plays well up and down the line of scrimmage. He is the guy, once again, though, that is he versatile, or is he a man without a home?
Is he homeless? Right.
And I still don't know. I'm at 11. I'm betting on that he's versatile, because he's a really good athlete. There are key flashes. He was a big part of that Oregon defense. And I did come away watching him thinking, like, I think an NFL coach that really likes him for their scheme is going to get a lot out of this guy. But he's a really tricky one, where the rest of these guys are not, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like,
look, I like Dorless. I'm a fan of his. It's tough to place exactly where he's going to be in this class. He would be the classic, and this is something that I want to get better at PFF as we kind of move forward to future draft classes. Like, I want to get better at being team specific with some of our projections with these players. And he is one who, like, I would love to have him at different places on a big board for different teams. Because if you're, it's hard to think like, okay, an even front team is really even going to value him that well, because what are you putting him at 5 tech? I guess you could, but I don't know how much value he's giving you as a 5 tech.
That's the question.
You want to put him at 3? Okay, well, he's got to gain weight again to get back to 3 technique spots, which is fine. Like, he played defensive tackle at Oregon for his first 2 years. Like, he was between 290 and 295 for his first 2 years he was in Oregon. And I felt like that was a good spot for him. Loses a little bit of weight, and it's like, okay, you can still play 3 tech at like 385, but now he's going the other direction. I can't remember what he weighed in at the combine, but
283.
Yeah, so I mean, like, he's kind of going the opposite direction, man. If he wanted to play interior, he'd have to be somewhere around like 290, but he's not. So I think he played this past year like around 280 flat. I like him. And here's some of the strengths that I have for his game. Offensive tackles, not used to his strength when he's lined up on the edge. He's got really good punch of contact. He is quick enough to win inside, which is why I liked him on the interior as a gap shooter, a 3 technique. His club move is absolutely devastating. I mean, he's just absolutely punching the crap out of these guys when he's putting a club move on them. Very powerful long arm, which again, I think is very effective against offensive tackles who are not used to that type of strength. But when you play him on the edge, if you play him in any sort of 2-point stance, he's got a very high pad level. I also think that just because he's trying to get up the arc, he's going to pop up very quickly. So the leverage, he loses a lot of his natural leverage stuff when you put him at the edge, even when he's in a 3-point stance. And I just think that he's kind of like sloppy with his run defense at times. And so it's just hard to know what to do with him. I think he's a really good football player, and I think he's going to be a good NFL player. It's just hard to place him in one of these rankings because he's going to be all over the place. It
definitely is. So who did I have in there? We talked about Gabe Murphy already.
Yeah.
Who did I have in there that, you think I might be high on, or it's going to cross over with you, or anyone like that?
Well, I mean, I could just name my 5.
Yeah, name your 5, and then we'll figure it out. We'll do the math.
So 15 for me is Austin Booker, so we're kind of close with the Austin Booker connection. 14, I have Brennan Jackson from Washington State, who you
close there too. Yeah.
13, I have Javon Solomon.
Nice.
12, I have Jalix Hunt. And 11, I have Braylon Trice. So I got Trice just outside of my top 10.
Okay.
If you're wondering, yes, I have not named Xavier Thomas yet.
No, you haven't.
Correct.
Okay, we'll get there.
Yeah. Did you add him at 17?
18.
18?
Yeah, 18.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about Jalix Hunt.
Okay.
Again, I already read off the measurables.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, somebody that has had a windy, weird road. I mean, converted DB. He's got the length. He's got the explosiveness. I think he's a draft and stash gem. He plays fast. He constantly just outran the offensive tackle's outside shoulder, which at his level of competition, okay, good, you got to do that. But when he arrives at the quarterback, it's a bus driving through a barrel, right? Like, it's just, the quarterback explodes.
Dude, he's dense.
Violent, dense.
When he makes contact with somebody, like, you could physically see they feel it.
Right.
And he's 252, and that's 21st percentile. But, for example, like, Javonte Jean-Baptiste is 250. So he's 2 pounds difference, right? Like, I could go to Chipotle and I can make up 2 pounds real quick. Like, depending on if we got a guy with a heavy hand with the double meat and the double rice, like, I can make up 2 pounds.
Give me the George Karlaftis.
If I just hammer the Karlaftis, I can make up those 2 pounds, and those two guys can weigh the exact same. But it's very different because I watch Jean-Baptiste and I go, okay, your power profile is lacking. You don't have that density in your body. I watch Jalix Hunt and I go, I am way more confident at you at 250 to handle NFL offensive linemen and NFL power responsibilities than I am some of these other guys. And I think that is to me the first area of, even before you get to how he utilizes the athleticism and all that stuff, do you have the power to play at 252? And certainly the Houston Christian tape, I mean, he is just blasting these people.
You're just laughing.
And you want to see that. You want to see, there's a play that I believe it was Jalix Hunt, right? That I DM'd. Didn't I DM you, EJ,
group
and Brett?
Chat?
Yeah, we've got a little group chat. Yeah, here it is. I'm watching it now. Jalix Hunt's on the edge, and there's a running back out of the backfield where he's trying to lead block for the quarterback who's running like off tackle, and the running back just runs up to Jalix Hunt, and Hunt just fully decleats this man into oblivion.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, sure, you won't be able to do that stuff at the NFL level, but if you're that dominant with your strength level, some of that stuff's going to translate pretty well. So, like, that's just, he's so dominant in the strength point. So
that's the box you want to check. Are you going to be able to handle the NFL trenches as a converted DB? And the answer is, the toughness and tenacity is there. It's just figuring out how to counter, not get stuck on blocks. And as a run defender, he's just shooting gaps and blowing up plays because he can, rather than, being asked to set a hard edge against a bigger player and it's just growing things. And I think he can grow on all those things because he has so much physical ability.
Yep. I like him a lot.
Me too.
I think the lateral agility for him is also very, very impressive. Like I see a player who is probably going to be that like 3-4 outside linebacker, that developmental player like you were mentioning. But this is somebody who can really attack both shoulders of an offensive tackle. Like this is somebody who can absolutely get 2 steps up the arc, put his foot in the ground, and immediately go back inside and get across the face of offensive tackles that'll probably just be trying to grasp at anything they possibly can. And you could use that for, obviously, if you're in like wider alignments and you're trying to attack the outside shoulder with speed, you can use that for tackle end stunts for him to crash inside. I think he'd be great at 100%. That as well. So this is a really nice speed rusher who, like I said, like I have a lot of faith in with the arm length and the athleticism and the body density. So I got him at 12.
Okay, so read that through again. I just want to make sure I have your 15 to 11 right.
I got Austin Booker, Brennan Jackson, Javon Solomon, Jalix Hunt, Braylon Trice. We should talk about Austin Booker next.
We should talk about Austin Booker. He's another, enigma in this class where the testing and the size in terms of the weight is concerning, but the flashes everywhere, not just the 1-year starter flashes, but the Senior Bowl flashes.
Yeah.
Of the moves he could pull off and how he could set up tackles and how he uses his length, to me, with another guy that, like, it's shocking to see how bad the 10-yard and the 40 was, because I think he moves pretty well on the field.
I'm worried about the testing, man. Because
this is somebody that before that, could have been in the top 10 of our edges, and he's not in either of ours.
I know. And I think Austin Booker, I think you using the word enigma is such a good word because there's so many things to like about him.
Right.
But you look at just his scouting profile as a whole, and he's just going to be either a really good bet for some teams, or some teams just aren't going to want to take the chance at all. So he was at Minnesota before he was at Kansas. He was only at Minnesota for 2 years, played a little bit, but not much. And then he goes to Kansas, basically like a 1-year starter at Kansas, but he didn't even play that much at Kansas because he got hurt this year. So it's like, and then he declared as a redshirt sophomore.
Shocking.
I would have. Now I get it. Like, hey, like I'm never going to tell anybody, hey, don't go to the NFL and get paid. Like this is not that conversation. But I think Austin Booker is talented enough to where he could have absolutely dominated the Big 12 and just been a stat stuffer in the Big 12 next year. And I wonder why he didn't opt to go do that and instead went to the NFL. And I think that you could tell his body was also not really ready for that because, was he really – it looked like he bulked up to get to 240, right?
I thought so too.
And 240 at edge rusher is 3rd percentile. So you bulked up to get to 240?
Well, then he tested like shit, which makes you wonder, was he carrying too much weight?
Right. And so now the only way for me to excuse poor testing at that weight is for me to think, okay, you probably played closer to 230 flat.
Because he looked good at Senior Bowl practices to me.
What did he weigh at Senior Bowl? Well, no, he was around the same thing, right?
Was he the same? But he looked good on the field.
I thought he was 242. So he looked good on the field, and so that's why it's tough because there's a lot of, I think, checkpoints that he doesn't hit. But if the film's the thing that matters most, I mean, he's extremely slippery. That's the word that I kept coming back to with this long, gangly edge rusher who is just like, he'd take one step towards the outside shoulder, and then it was just this whoop, like right inside. Like he would just be so slippery in between the tackle and the guard. He had a great feel for getting into the backfield. The long limbs and the effort made him really tough to block. The pass rush play. Now this is an area where I wish he was a little bit better. And again, like I think this could have been way better with another year in college. Right now, his pass rush plan is I'm going to take 2 steps forward. I'm going to read whatever the offensive tackle does. Are they going to overset me? Or am I even? What are they doing with their hands? Now, I'm not saying that those things are bad things. Being conscious of what the offensive tackle does and countering is advantageous. But there are times when I want you to play a little bit more patient. There are other times when I want you to dictate how this is going to go. I want you to, before the snap, say, I'm going to get off the ball so fast, I'm going to hit this guy with a cross chop, or I'm going to hit this guy with a club rip, or I'm just going to like chop the outside hand. I'm going to bend, I'm going to rip, I'm going to get around the end, and I'm going to get to the quarterback. There are times when I want you to be patient, but there are other times I want you to go.
Yeah.
Dictate what's about to happen.
Well, because in the NFL, the timing's not the same.
You are not going to be able to sit there and be patient in the NFL, because if you waste half a second waiting on an NFL offensive tackle to screw up, let me tell you, they're probably not going to. They're starting at the NFL level. So that's why it's like, there are things that I really like about Austin Booker, but then there are other things that just hold me back from fully investing. So like, I gave him a 3rd round grade. I know some people are a lot higher on him, but I would still love for a team to draft him back end of day 2, let him develop a little bit, because I think he is going to take a little bit of time to develop. I don't think he's going to be a guy that you could play out there in year 1. Hope he proves me wrong. Hope he gets 15 sacks as a rookie. But that's just how I see it with Austin Booker and why he came at 15 for me.
It's the movement skills, right? I think that is just, it looks different on tape. And it's something that with the right coaching and with more seasoning, that you either have that or you don't. And he's got it, but it's everything else that he needs to figure out, and just has not played a lot of football.
Yeah.
We got to talk about Solomon, because I think it was some of my favorite tape to watch.
Yep.
Because obviously he's just so productive, right? Double-digit sacks.
Not just double-digit sacks, it was like 17.
I think it was 17. Which
and he played off-ball linebacker his whole career before this year.
That's what's crazy. It's, he's like the college version of Hassan Reddick, right? Where he's been playing off the ball, and then they're like, okay, let's let him rush the passer, even though he's kind of built weird. And it's awesome. It's just awesome when you watch him, because let me get his exact combine measurements. He is not even a full 6'1". He is 6 feet tall and 7/8, 246. Yep. So 0th percentile height, 8th percentile weight, but he's got long arms. He's got almost 34-inch arms,
baby.
11-inch hands. 11 inches. He's just like this, like kind of shorter guy walking around with these giant meat hook hands. It's like they like just, I don't even know how to, like, built in a lab, but like the height went wrong in a way, and it doesn't. He's really, really excellent at winning on the outside, and it's not just let me get off the ball and run by the tackle and see what happens. Mm-hmm. He can Euro step. Yeah. He can throw his inside hand on the outside hand and kind of swivel and turn his body and get the flexibility in his hips and ankles going. Like, he's loose. I really like him. I actually am almost sitting here. I wish I had him a little higher. There just wasn't the floor with Solomon, because I was between him and Jackson, right? I had Brennan Jackson just slightly over him, because Jackson, to me, with the power profile and just I don't want to call it reckless abandon, but the dude just plays like a million miles an hour every snap and is pretty tough. Where I'm like, I like the floor. Solomon, it could be a gem of this draft, but he's just such a weird outlier in so many ways. And then, we saw he got a little banged up that first Senior Bowl practice, right? When we were standing there, didn't he twist an ankle? Or I want to make sure I'm not mixing him up. It might have been someone else.
Who is this?
Solomon.
No, Jackson. Or did Solomon also do that?
Maybe not.
Because Jackson was the one where I was watching them warm up in a drill.
Yes.
And he hit, they were up against the field goal post, and they're just doing, hit a spin move here.
That's
or
what I was thinking.
And, practice the move. And he hit the spin move, and there was a pylon, the loose pylon that was sitting there, and he didn't see it, and he rolled his ankle on it. That was Brennan Jackson.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, when it comes down to it, for me, you have to take your swings on outliers at times. You just, we had this conversation. Jalex Hunt is an outlier. He's a developmental player. Javon Solomon is not a developmental player. He's an outlier. He's one of the most productive pass rushers in the country.
Yeah.
There's really nobody in the NFL built like him. And I brought up Hassan Reddick because Reddick's a really weird one, right? Like, Reddick's like 6'1". Reddick's pretty well built, but And I'm not saying Solomon's Hassan Reddick. That's a ridiculous thing to ask.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of guys built like this. But I think his ability with outside speed wins. Now, if you have him like, hey, it's first down and Rashawn Slater is coming at you, that's where it's hard, right? Projectable roles. I don't think he's an NFL run defender right now because there's really nobody in the NFL playing on the line of scrimmage defending the run at that build right now.
So the comp that immediately popped into my head was Uchenna Nwosu.
That's a really good one because he's kind of a weird one and he's been really good for Seattle.
Right, and he's like small.
And it took a little while with Nwosu.
Right, and Nwosu is not as small as Solomon is, but they're sort of around the same. Like Nwosu is barely above 6'2", 250 pounds.
Right.
Solomon is almost 6'1", 246 pounds, but then Solomon has those 33 and 7/8 inch arms, and Nwosu has 33 and 5/8 inch arms. So it's like both of these guys are below 20th percentile for height and weight, but then they're above 50th percentile for arm length,
which really, really matters.
Yes. So, the reason why I like Javon Solomon
a lot more than height
is because and we'll actually get to another player near the very top of the list who is also like this, but when you are a shorter edge rusher, now you don't want to be too short, but when you are a little bit shorter of an edge rusher and you just have long arms, well, then all of a sudden you have natural leverage and then you have natural length. Like you have both of those advantages. Normally you got to pick, right? Normally you got Miles Cole where, okay, you're winning the length battle, but you're always going to lose the leverage battle, or you are always going to win the leverage battle, but you're always going to lose the length battle. So to be a little bit shorter and to have longer arms is actually almost like a best of both worlds. So I also like him a good amount. I think that he is got the potential to be an impact 3-4 outside linebacker, guy who could really contribute.
Yeah, fun player to watch on tape.
Yep.
All right, we've bounced all over here. Is it time for the grand finale of the top 10 to 6?
Yes, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, 10 to 6. Number 10, I'll say that one of my favorite players in the entire draft, Mo Kamara from Colorado State.
Whoa.
Did I just blow your mind?
Whoa. Brother, I don't have Mo Kamara in my top 20.
Wow, okay.
Now, to be fair, I think he is 21.
Okay.
Because look, I like Mo. He's just small.
He is. He's taller than Solomon, but he doesn't have the arm length.
Right.
But he doesn't have no arm length. It's not great. He's over 32-inch arm length. I mean, all right.
I am so surprised that you have him this high.
And
I like him.
Stupid high on him. Let me read the 10 to 6 because I barely have to talk about the other guys. We talk about them so much.
Okay.
9 is Adisa Isaac. 8 is Braylon Trice. 7 is Darius Robinson. 6 is Chris Braswell.
Okay.
Mo Kamara. Let me just get to the actual full write-up here.
Yeah, please do. Because, and here's the thing, like I had that reaction that I did, not because I don't think he's a good football player.
Right. You didn't like Cooper Beebe him.
I wish I was higher on Mo Kamara because love the effort on tape.
Oh, it's great.
It's awesome. Really liked when he was able to kind of like pin his ears back when I was watching him at the Shrine Bowl. Loved him there as well. But in both instances, the lack of length shows up for. But please don't let me. I don't mean to spoil it. You have him at 10. You tell me about, and you tell the people about Mo Kamara.
If he had length, I'd have a true second round grade on him. I have a third round on him. I wrote just a fire hydrant built edge rusher that plays as hard as anybody in this position group. Like I will put his effort up against anyone's. Kamara overcomes his unusual pass rush build with pure tenacity. He plays fast and heavy-handed, rarely stalemated throughout his rush. There is sneaky flexibility in his game to turn into the pocket, even when he's engaged with blockers. The way he can turn his hips and ankles while in the hand fight and do both at the same time. It's not like, I'm engaged, let me try to counter, but my lower half stops working. Everything was always working in sync. And that is a really, really key component. I think he's at his best when rushing from a wide alignment where that long runway gets the speed to power just cooking. Where he's shorter He has leverage. He can get under your pads. Once again, the heavy-handedness. The 10-yard, 91st percentile 10-yard split. This guy, that
he can
first,
get off the ball.
He can get off the ball. He explodes off the ball. I put that, against the run, he's just more of a gap shooter rather than that read and react defender. It gets him in trouble at times. Overall, the tape shows a pass rush specialist that can grow into more despite being an outlier from a height, weight, and length standpoint.
I'm looking at Mock Draftable right now, and I'm just looking at some comparisons for him. Nick Bonito is actually the highest percentile comparison, 81.4 percentile. Bonito, same thing, kind of like 3rd percentile height, 11th percentile weight, 10th percentile arm length, but 91st percentile 10-yard split, 93rd. Oh no, this is Kamara himself. Hold on, sorry. Going to Bonito. Bonito was 6'3", says 30th percentile, weight 248. That's 7th percentile. But he had 87th percentile 10-yard split, 96th percentile 40-yard dash, 80th percentile vertical jump, 76th percentile broad jump. So, I mean, just explosive player. Man, I like Kamara. Now I got to go back and, all right, where's the scouting report? Now we got to get into this bad boy. Yeah, it's just the big detractors, right? I don't have many negative things to say about him. Like, his weaknesses category for me is lower. He grades really well at PFF. His pass rush win rate was awesome. His pass rush grade was awesome. His pass rush grade on true pass sets, 92.2. I mean, awesome stuff, truly. I just wonder if the measurables are just a complete deal breaker for him.
Sure.
Now, I still have him. This is kind of like where are we here? Like late 4th round grade. So we're not that far.
We're not
off.
that far. I could tell you where I had him on my last big board was
I think I just see a lot of in between 4th rounders in this class.
Yeah.
More than you do.
Oh, he will not be drafted where I have him.
Okay.
He
will
will not
trying to be right, baby.
I have him in the top 75. He will not be taken in the top 75.
You're trying to be on the right side of history. I respect you for
this
it.
This is
dude.
my bet. I always have one bet in the edge class.
Sure.
This is
7-2 offsuit. It's got no chance in hell, but you're going all in, baby.
Don't
you're
care.
Trying to, Let's see 7-7-2 on the river from Okamara. Let's see it. Hall of Famer.
Oh, if it hits though, we're getting the boat again. Another boat. The Casino River boat. We already got the yacht. The Casino River boat. If Mo Camara is a hit.
The boat Camara. That's what it's going to be called.
Yes. The Mo boat.
The Mo boat.
I'm all in. Yeah, man. I really just some of my favorite tape I watch, and I know like I've been saying outlier a lot on this show, and I've been one of the number one things I was taught when I was coming up in scouting was like do not bet on outliers. Like really pick your spots, and this is absolutely called picking your spot.
Okay, all right. For me, because I know we'll have conversations about who I have at 10. Funny enough. I have Xavier Thomas from Clemson.
Right.
That's
our other big gap because I have him at 18.
Yeah. Marshawn Nealon for me is 9. Darius Robinson for me is 8. Chop Robinson is 7. And Adisa Isaac is 6.
Adisa over Chop.
Correct.
I mean, it's not like some people be like, whoa, because they've been so ingrained in their brain about the Chop hype for a year now. It's not the craziest thing at all. I think before we talk about them two together, shall we talk about who? Well,
Xavier Thomas. Yes.
My brain just short-circuited. Like it totally unplugged.
Really good football player, man.
He is.
5-star edge rusher as a recruit. I think he was the number 3 overall recruit in the country in 2018. It was him at number. Trevor Lawrence is at number 1, and he was like 2 spots below. So it was an incredible recruiting class from Dabo Swinney and Clemson to get both of those guys. Now, Thomas, it was kind of a winding road for him. I think he was a All-American freshman team, but he kind of he just didn't really have that same sort of pop in the years that followed that. 2022 was kind of supposed to be his big year, but he suffered a foot injury that caused him to miss. I think a lot of games he missed.
It's like a lost season.
5 games. Returned to play against Boston College, re-injured his foot in practice again, missed the rest of the final 6 games of the year. So, I mean, he barely played in 2022. And when people go like, okay, how did this 5-star edge rusher, why are we talking about him as like a 6th-year player at this point, being in the top 10? Well, one, I think he could have come out in 2021. Yeah, he could have come out in 2021 if he wanted to, but he went back and tried to have a nuclear year in 2022.
Yeah.
Gets hurt. And so you're not going to leave now off of an injury year. So now you have an entire another year here in 2023. And I get it. It's been a longer, more winding path than we've wanted to here, but he's just still so good, if you ask me. Super explosive out of his stance, really stresses out offensive tackles on the outside shoulder with how well he is able to burst off of the snap. Relentless pass rush style. I mean, he will take on as many blockers as he needs to get to the quarterback. Loved his effort there. The feet are incredibly quick from him. Hands equally match the feet when it comes to quickness. I mean, if you are not an elite processor or anticipator when it comes to offensive tackle play, this dude's going to put you in hell. Like the way, the speed of his feet and his hands, I mean, you are not going to be able, unless you are already anticipating where your hands are going to go and how you're going to fight him and mitigate that stuff, he's going to give you lots of fits. Some weaknesses for him. Likes to use the long arm move, but will likely not be effective with his length at the NFL level. Overall size is somewhat of an issue for trench play. Looks to be pretty maxed out at 245 pounds. And he's an explosive player, but the shorter strides do affect how much ground he covers when he gets off the snap. So look, I gave him a late 2nd, early 3rd round grade. Again, love this dude as he could be a stand-up edge rusher for you because of his height, but I also think he's very comfortable and explosive from a 3-point stance too. So even for even front teams, he could be a rotational defensive end that could really get after the passer, certainly on 3rd downs to start. And then he could develop into a potential starter, I think, as things go on for him. So the way that final points for him, Thomas is a true low floor, high ceiling prospect. He's on the older side, but his natural athletic gifts are still worth taking a chance on to continue to develop as a pass rush specialist to start and a potential starter after that. That's how I see him.
Listen, a lot of tape. I mean, 6-year player, somebody that similar to Kamara, like undersized and cross height, weight, length. I didn't think he had the burst off the ball that Kamara had, which separated them, far apart from me.
You didn't think he had the same burst?
No.
Whoa.
I didn't.
I disagree.
And now I will say, the dreaded Clemson defense every year, where how many times are they really given the chance? This happens to every prospect they have. But the things I really liked, I thought, and let me correct that. He has good burst off the ball. I didn't think it was Kamara's level. Like Kamara, to me, it was like,
well, Kamara obviously tested a little bit better in the 10-yard split, but for whatever reason, I just think that, I guess his physical build is the reason. Thomas, they're pretty similar 40-yard dashes. Like Thomas gets up to the same speed and explosiveness that Kamara does. I just think the strides are a little bit shorter getting out of the stance. So, which matters. Obviously, I mentioned that part matters.
I gave Thomas a 4th round grade. I actually thought, I came away liking him more than I even thought because he just kind of been forgotten man.
Yeah.
When you play that many years, when you were once upon a time a potential top 50 pick. And he's just a forgotten man in this class. And when I wrote him up actually 2 nights ago, and when I was done, I'll just read the write up. I was like, I actually really like him. Mm-hmm. Plays with his hair on fire. Fires off the ball to keeps the same energy across 4 quarters. Does a good job balancing, getting under blockers' pads and swiping away their hands to win with speed. Even when he doesn't win his rush attempts, he disrupts passing lanes by getting his arms up to disrupt throws. In the run game, Thomas is a middleweight fighting in the heavyweight arena. Offensive linemen are able to drive block him off the line of scrimmage, leaving gaps exposed. He does lack the size to be a 3-down defender, but his energetic nature gives him a shot to crack a rotation, especially with his experience both standing up and with his hand in the dirt. So, interesting player.
I like him.
You really do.
I'm a big fan.
Shall we get to...
is there anybody else? Like I had Marshawn Nealon, Darius Robinson, Chop Robinson, Adisa Isaac. Anybody else you want to hit on that before we get into the top 5s?
I was a little frustrated with Darius Robinson. because it's the doorless conversation in a weird way at times.
Yeah, except not as athletic.
Right.
Like, now here's the thing. Robinson's just straight up a better football player than his combine tests are going to show.
That's why I still have him as the 7th edge.
He's just a better like
the floor is still really good. Like, it's not really. I should never say a floor of a player is really good. That's not fair. There's a floor there that exists that you're comfortable with in the top 75 picks. When he was thrown in the first round of mock drafts, this got out of control. Out of control.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you.
So
he is a really solid football player that had a really good week in Mobile, and everybody was like, well, yeah, first round. We're like, okay, actually, that's not how this works. But I do. I just think he's a good football player. But like, what did he run in the 40? Like, now, it doesn't totally matter.
But he's not that athletic on film. He's strong.
Yes, he's big and
strong.
Yeah, look at this stuff. As an edge rusher, height, 86th percentile. Weight, 91st percentile. Wingspan, 95th percentile. Arm length, 84th percentile. Hand size, 96th percentile. Then you get into the actual athleticism of edge rush play. 10-yard split, 12th percentile. 40-yard dash, 16th percentile. Broad jump, 25th percentile. Vertical jump was 71st percentile, which you love to see. But like the explosiveness, that's what he does.
He's not a real edge player.
He's got a really nice first step, and he gets into your chest, and he'll shove you back. He'll win with speed to power. He'll win with just straight up bull rushes. You need the runway speed, but and he's a powerful football player. Again, first round was too rich for me.
Yeah, and you just got to wonder, what is the best utilization of a player like that going forward?
Yep. Yeah.
Do you want to break down Adiza over Chop?
Yeah, I mean, I can. I just think the floor is higher for Adiza, and I think that Adiza is a really solid football player, man. I do. Like, I think that what did he weigh in at, Isaac? I can't remember what his.
I'll pull it up right now.
Where is
he? Was 247.
So he was, 247. So like, that's honestly like the big, because you look at the rest of his profile, very well rounded.
Yeah, long arms.
Tall, long arms. I mean, like decent 40-yard dash, decent 10-yard split, decent vertical jump, pretty good broad jump as well. So like, this is a really good football player. He just got to gain a little bit of weight and get a little bit stronger. Like,
and to be fair, 2 years removed from the Achilles, it feels like it's going that direction.
I mean, if you tell me that Adiza Isaac's going to comfortably play somewhere around 255, I'm good with that, man.
Oh, easily.
I think that's a second round player to me. I think is he going to be edge one for you? No. Can Chop Robinson be edge one for you? Yes, I get it. But I'm way more worried about Chop because didn't have the backfield production. It's sort of the same issues that I have with Xavier Thomas, where he's got the short strides. Sure, he explodes off the ball, but he's not covering a ton of ground when he gets off the snap. And what's the number one thing it feels like edge rush or defensive coaches want you to do? Get upfield. Get upfield.
Yeah.
Get even with the offensive tackle. Get around the outside shoulder. And for Robinson, he's doing it because he's very explosive in doing so, but the stride length is so much smaller, it takes him longer to do it. And then he's got the short arms because of it. He doesn't have the measurable build to be a really good run defender. So now I'm talking about, okay, is he just this like rare, I'm not saying that they're built the same, but like Hassan Reddick type of a player where you just put him in the game and he's getting a sack? Like, is he going to be that good? I don't know. It's tough for me to say that. So Chop has a higher ceiling than Adiza Isaac. I won't take that away, but
right.
I can find a lot more ways that Adiza Isaac can get on the field, I feel like. It's just Chop's more liability in the run game. He's just not built for it. He doesn't have that length. To me, Chop wins right now off of just being more athletic than everybody else. It's why his backfield production is bad and his pass rush grade and his pass rush win percentage are good. Because at the end of the day, when the ball's getting out of the quarterback's hands or when his part of the play is done, he's probably winning or beating his offensive tackle. But the reason why he's not getting there quick enough is because of the stride length. It's the length deficiencies. And he just doesn't have that pass rush profile outside of being way more athletic. It's very rare that you win like that at the NFL level. So he's got a lot of refining to do in order for him to be an actual really well-rounded, consistent starter, somebody that you can depend upon, and honestly, somebody that can unlock some rare athletic traits. So that's why I had Isaac over Chop. I'm worried I'm worried that there's a lot for him to learn, for him to be a backfield monster. And really for Adiz Isaac, all I'm really worried about is just get to 255, man. Take 2 years, strength and
Keep getting
conditioning.
stronger.
Yeah, just get a little bit stronger. And I got you as a really solid defensive end.
Right. Isaac knows how to play the game too, where he'll work his outside speed to set you up on the inside later in the game. There's a plan there. There's a craft there. All right. So 5-1 for me. Number 5 is Utah's Jonah Ellis.
Yeah, baby.
Which I could tell you and I are going to be high man on Jonah Ellis.
It's fine.
I think.
It's fine. The podcast will stay.
We've been for a long time. 4 is Chop Robinson. You summed it up really well. There's so much bust potential there, but there's also so much boom because of how gifted he is athletically.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next 3 are all tiered together for me with Latu, Dallas Turner, and Jared Verse being my top guy. We've had the conversation amongst those 3.
So you have if you got a 1, 2, 3, it's
Versus 1, Turner's 2, Latu's 3.
Okay. All right. So for me,
and I think it's flipped for you.
Yeah, for me, Jonah Ellis is 5.
Right.
I have Chris Braswell 4.
Okay.
I don't love it.
Yeah. He was the guy in Mobile where
I just wanted. I know that's a great. People call this podcast
conviction in our rankings.
Real conviction.
That was me halfway through the show. I was like, "Am I too low on Javon Solomon? What have I done? What have I done?
No,
I love this player. Why did I have him at 16?
Yeah. What the hell is wrong with you, brother?
Mo Kamara's not in your top 20. Did I just put a UDFA in my top 75?
So Chris Braswell. He's still just potential to me, right? And it's kind of, I wish he wasn't as much potential as he is as a redshirt junior, so a 4-year player. But like, when the light comes on, man, I mean, this past year, over the last 2 years, 90.4 pass rush grade, 90.1 pass rush grade against true passing sets, 18.5 pass rush win percentage, that's 94th percentile. Like, the dude can get after the quarterback. He's super explosive. He's built really well. He doesn't have much of a pass rush plan. He's got a bit of a false step in his game right now. He's still learning the timing of pass rush moves.
Right.
He's a bit stiff when he's kind of like coming up the arc. He doesn't have as much bend as I wish he had.
That was the number one thing for me because
I know.
I know he can rush with power.
And that's
already
the thing.
know that.
Yeah, speed to power is nasty.
The speed to power there's knockback power where you're like, yeah, that's going to work in the NFL.
So I'm just kind of trusting the athleticism there. And then for me, I'm in the same boat. Like they're all 3 in the same tier. Versus 3 for me. Turner is 2 and Latu is 1.
And they're also different.
They are also different, which has made a lot of these conversations very fun. But Verse will win with power. Turner's going to win with. Turner was the other guy that I was alluding to, that I was teasing, that he is. Let me make sure that I have the exact measurements up here. Dallas Turner is 6'2" and 3/4, so he's under 6'3", but he has a 83-inch wingspan, which is 88th percentile. He is 21st percentile height and 88th percentile wingspan. He is barely under 6'3", and he's got the wingspan of somebody who's 6'9".
Right. It's Inspector Gadget kind of stuff.
It is. And then Latu is just, like we've said so many times, an absolute black belt when it comes to the hand usage and the pass rush moves. And it's just, he's unblockable. 22.3 pass rush win percentage over the last 2 years, 99th percentile, folks. I mean, it's just, when we talk about PFF's, one of PFF's signature metrics that we have is our wins above replacement or wins above average metric. He had by far the highest of the edge rush group. This past year, he earned a 0.51. So for quarterbacks to be worth anything above half a win alone is nuts.
Right.
Incredible. I mean, for reference, Turner, his highest was this past year at 0.27. Verse, his highest was this past year at 0.29. Trying to see if like anybody else was higher than that. Chop Robinson was 0.35 just because of the pass rush win percentage is insane. So like his was up there, but just nobody else was close to, I think, where Braylon Trice was 0.40 because of just all the pressures that he was able to manufacture.
Right, he'll have like 14 against Washington State.
I know, yeah. I felt like he was a bully against bad opponents.
He as Mike Francesa would say, he's a bit of a compiler. Like but I mean, not a bad player by any means.
No, he's not. And I love his mentality. I think he could be a really nice depth piece 4-3 defensive end. But yeah, anyways, I mean, did you want to touch on any of those guys in the top 5? Didn't mean to go on a tangent.
No, you're good. I think for me, I really like versus floor with the hand usage, the speed to power, how much better he's gotten, the weight he's put on, the way he plays the run, the way he stepped up in big moments. There's just so much to like with Jared Verse of what he is today. And the same could be said for Latu. I mean, Latu's going to come into the NFL and he's going to be able to throw counter moves and get off blocks and be really creative in his pass rush plan. I think he was a better athlete in the testing than even we expected, where you're like, okay, with Latu, like full transparency, there's always going to be concern about the medical retirement with the neck issue. And I think if Latu didn't have that, he'd be going 10 spots earlier in this draft than where he's going to go. With Turner's fascinating to me because you almost come away from the testing, and he's a great athlete on film. You're not surprised by any of this. But you're like, why aren't you even better? Like, why aren't you the number 2 overall pick in the draft? I think that's a conversation a lot of people have been afraid to have with Dallas Turner. And I don't think it's an insulting thing. I think it's just one of those areas where Dallas Turner's a really good prospect. Mm-hmm. He plays fast. He has explosive speed. I think he is a really good finesse rusher in the way he can elude blockers.
Right.
And I think he could do things off the ball that 90% of edge rushers can't. Like, you could look at Dallas Turner and be like, hey, drop in his zone coverage. Hey, run with a running back in the flat.
Right.
Like, really good stuff. Is Dallas Turner using his explosiveness to convert speed to power? Is Dallas Turner strong enough right now to be like a true 3-down force in the NFL? Mm-hmm. Is Dallas Turner just always going to be a guy that wins by eluding blockers rather than kind of throwing the changeups there and being like, oh man, like he threw his hand into me and like I lost my balance? Yeah. Because he has the profile of a guy that should be an elite NFL prospect. And he's just a good NFL prospect.
I think he's better than just good.
I'm being a little harsh there because I have the guy in my top 15.
I completely understand what you're saying because I think you're right. There are things about Dallas Turner, the combine testing, the measurables, everything where you go like, hey, why are you not talked about in the top 5? Like, why are you not? And I know he's the betting favorite to be the first defensive player off the board, but
I don't think he will be, by the way.
I think a lot of that has to do with the Falcons desperately needing edge rusher, them going to a 3-4, and that being the reason why he's kind of like a runaway there. Not necessarily because he is a runaway himself, right? So his game is just, it's still too finesse right now when it comes to run defense and when it comes to pass rushing with a well-rounded profile when it comes to power. And if Dallas Turner right now is just who he is, it's still a really good NFL player, but we've got 2 really good players in Jared Verse and Latu who are also in this class. And I'm so very tempted to put Jared Verse above Dallas Turner, but Turner, it's just that potential of his athleticism. And it's like, okay, if he can get a little bit stronger, we are talking about a guy who's, man, just so special and gifted athletically and has all the measurables that you would want. So I kept him at edge 2, but he does, to me, even more so than the other 2. Latu leaves a little bit to be desired athletically, and Verse leaves a little bit to be desired when it comes to the flexibility and some speed finesse parts of his game. But even so, I would say that Turner leaves more to be desired than those 2 in their deficiency categories, in his deficiency category of playing stronger, playing better, playing with more power. Hopefully that made sense to everybody out there.
I think it made a lot of sense.
That's kind of how I see the top part of this edge rush class. So
well said.
There we go.
I think that puts a bow on it. 20,
there we go.
20
Yeah,
in the books.
let us know what you guys thought of our obviously heavily convicted takes. Hey, we had a couple in there. All right, don't come for the Chris Bradwell moment too hard.
I don't feel good about it.
we had, look, you had Kamara in the top 10. I had Xavier Thomas in the top 10. We obviously had a lot of takes. We would love to hear yours as well. Let us know in the comment section. It's the best way to get your takes off and for us to see that, be able to go back and forth with you guys. We mentioned there's a handful of edge rushers that even did not make our top 20 that we're sure you guys want to hear about. So please let us know if we have watched them. We'll throw a comment in or a reply to your comment so we can have a little bit of a back and forth and you guys can hear what we think about all those prospects. It's an exciting edge rush class, and so we would love to hear what you guys think as well, right? Again, this is not just a podcast where you guys listen to our rankings. Tell us yours. We're in April now. Like, we know you guys have watched these players. Tell us who you got. Give us a top 5, give us a top 10, whatever you're comfortable with. We would love to see it. And I'd love the community to kind of interact with all of these rankings and see what everybody thinks. Best way to do that, YouTube comments, youtube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange. If you are listening on audio only, X and Instagram @Tampa Bay Trey, @Connor J. Rogers. That's the best way to reach us. Connor, you got anything else before we get out of here?
I have 2 things.
Yes.
One,
is it not about the Mets?
No, it's not about the Mets. They won in walk-off fashion.
Just making sure.
I no-sold it. I didn't even smile when it was down on my other monitor. I was like, I was happy inside, but it's not about the Mets. I think a popular name in the comment section will probably be a Yabi Anoma from Charlotte.
Oh yeah.
When at some point, especially after everybody's drafted, we'll spend a lot of time on day 3 players, especially somebody like that massive recruit, windy road with a lot of different stuff going on there and still a legitimate prospect. And then number 2, I just want to say this before we sign off, because these episodes are such a good reminder to me. These episodes we do together where we go through 20 different players. I was thinking about this when I was driving to work the other day, because I was driving in to do some draft tapings, have made me, I don't want to say like better evaluator, like I'm one of the best evaluators in the business, but such a more well-rounded evaluator that I have these conversations with you for almost 2 hours going through players, thinking things that matter, things that might not matter as much, what you saw in guys that maybe I didn't see the first time around. Like, everybody talks about the top 5, top 10 players, but these conversations about the top 20 and some of the guys that didn't make the top 20, like this process, this show, it's so fun for exact episodes like this, because I think it has benefited my personal process so much. You and I are individual evaluators. We try to rank over 200 prospects by ourselves. And I just want to say, and I hope people that listen to this feel the same way, that also evaluate or just like to talk about the draft in their spare time or follow the draft as a hobby, how much I love these episodes.
Dude, look, rankings are fun. Conversations are even better.
It's
right.
Better. I mean, it's so much better.
It's great to feel convicted and to say like who I would like to take in a ranking of certain players, but it's way better to hear why. Right. And I agree with you 100%. I'm glad that you feel that way. I feel the same way. Hopefully the listeners out there do as well. This is so much fun to hear the why, to hear, okay, why are you so high on Mo Kamara? Why are you so high on Javon Solomon? Like, why are you so low on this player? Like, the nuance of how we get to this point, I hope is always a entertaining thing for everybody out there, but I also hope it's super educational. Like, y'all who are listening to this podcast, again, we mean it. We don't just say this like because comments help the YouTube video. Like, this is fun for us. Like, this, we do this because we love it. And hearing different perspectives, I always have the same feeling of like, it's either going to fortify your opinion and what you think, because you'll be able to defend what you think and you'll say, no, actually, I see it this way and I think this is correct. Or you'll see something a different way and you go, damn, I didn't think about that before. Actually, let me go back and and so that's why I agree completely, man. Going back and forth with you, because I respect your scouting eye and your scouting opinion and everything that you do with your process so much. When we do these episodes, we don't just not reveal our list before the show because we're not good planners. It's also because it is a lot of fun to like if I were to send you my ranking, or if you were to send me your ranking, like it'd be tempting to not be like, damn, Connor's got this guy way lower.
Let me go back.
I got to bring this guy way
lower.
Course. But it gives you a chance on the show to say like, ooh, not only instant reaction, but also like instant why. So I'm glad that you said that, man. I enjoyed that a lot too. Hopefully everybody else out there enjoys it as well.
All right, man. Another one in the books.
Another one in the books. We got another episode of the Collab Mock Draft Series coming for you at the beginning of next week. I won't tell you who it is. All I will tell you is that this was the most requested guest that we had, and you guys are not going to want to miss it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get to it. Until then, I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. We will see you on Monday.